Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm sharing another shelf cooking recipes video. This is me using up tons of things that are already in my pantry, my fridge, my freezer. I'm just using everything up in my house before buying new. So if you are looking for some inspiration on how to stick to a budget, create budget-friendly meals for your family, I really hope you'll enjoy today's video, but let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so for this first one, I am going to be making some taco pasta, which is one of our favorites. I've made this a few times before and it's really good. So I'm just starting off with 1 pound of some lean ground beef. Mine was a little bit frozen in the middle still, so that's why I'm struggling to get it kind of chopped up here. And then I'm just going to add in 1 large onion. You can do a little bit less. You can do like a half of an onion or whatever you want. And then I'm also adding in about 1 sweet bell pepper. Mine was actually frozen in our freezer that I just threw in there. I'm just adding a little bit of salt and pepper, garlic powder, and then I'm just going to brown all of this up. Once my beef was completely cooked through, then I'm ready to add in everything else. So this is 2 tablespoons of homemade taco seasoning with about 1/4 cup of water, and I'm just quick mixing that together. You don't need to really let it simmer or anything, just give it a quick mix together. And then I'm going to be adding in my salsa. So I added about 1 cup of medium and then a little bit of mild mixed together. And then I added about 2 cups of beef broth here. You can add a little bit more if you want to. You're going to want to add at least 2 cups, if not closer to 2.5 cups, just to make sure that you have enough for your pasta to cook in. I let the broth come up to a boil, and then I'm adding in half a box of some shell pasta. I cooked this for about 10 minutes. I did put the lid on while my pasta was cooking. Obviously, when you're boiling noodles, you don't typically do that, but when I'm doing a 1-pot dish, I do usually put the lid on there. And then I'm just topping it with a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese. And this one was absolutely delicious. I mixed part of the cheese in there and then I added a little bit more on top. You guys will really like this one. Like I said, it's a 1-pot dish, so it's great, simple and easy. Let me know if you try this one out, and I will have everything typed out in my description box below. If you want to look at the recipes there, they will be in my description box. Alright, so for this next dinner, I am making a sausage and potato skillet. Now this is something that is very basic and also very affordable to make. A lot of us have potatoes sitting in our pantry that just need to get used up. So I'm just taking those, I washed them really good, make sure you scrub them, slice them up really nice and thin. And then you're just gonna cut over how many potatoes up that you want. On this night, I think I did probably like 7 or 8. And then for my sausage, I'm actually using a venison sausage. We have a ton of this in our freezer, so this is a great way for me to use this up. So I'm just cutting that up, slicing it. I'm not going to add the sausage in right away with the potatoes, but I'll show you how I end up making it. But use whatever you have on hand for sausage. It really doesn't matter too much. This is like 50-50 venison and then 50 pork. So getting all that cut up. Into my skillet here, I add quite a bit of olive oil in there. You could also use vegetable oil if you want to, but I try and go for something a little bit healthier. I add a little bit more on top, and then you're going to want to use a lot of salt, pepper, and garlic powder for this recipe. I like to cook my potatoes for probably a good like 10 to 15 minutes before adding in my sausage. My sausage is a pre-cooked sausage, so I didn't need to like make sure it really came to temperature, so I didn't want my sausage to dry out at all. So after those like 10-15 minutes, I'm mixing the sausage in there, and then I'm just going to continue cooking this for probably another like 7 or 8 minutes. Make sure those potatoes are nice and soft. I do like to keep the lid on during this cooking process just because it makes sure that the potatoes actually get soft. And then once it's all done cooking, I just add a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese on top, put the lid on to help everything melt together. I just served this with cucumbers because that's what we had, but it was a really delicious dinner. For dinner on this next night, I made pizza burgers. This is something my mom made growing up all the time, and I still make it quite a bit now. So again, I'm starting off with 1 pound of some lean ground beef. You could also use turkey, ground turkey for this recipe. I like to add onion into mine. Obviously, if you have picky kids that might not like onion, just leave that out. no problem, leave it out. You can add green peppers in here if you want to for a little extra veggie. And then I just pulled these English muffins out of my freezer that I had to use up in there. And you can also use hamburger buns for this recipe. So if you have hamburger buns that are starting to get like just a tiny bit on the drier side, this is a fabulous way to use them up. Just cut everything in half, and then you're gonna toast these in the oven for probably like 7 minutes at like 375. While those were toasting in the oven, I just shredded up some mozzarella cheese because that's what I'm gonna be using. I did start shredding my own cheese, so I like to get it prepped ahead of time when I'm able to. And then into my pan here with the ground beef, once it was fully cooked, I'm just adding in a jar of pizza sauce. You can do more or less just depending on what you want. Don't make it super saucy because you don't want to make your buns soggy. You want your beef to absorb most of the sauce, I would say. And then you're just gonna spread this mixture out onto your either English muffins or your buns. Like I said, I do like to pre-toast mine for about 7 minutes or so, just to make sure that my buns or my English muffins don't get soggy, because I do like to keep those on the crispier side. So I'm just adding my beef on there. And then I'm also gonna top this with some mozzarella cheese, which you will see here in just a second. And this is also a point where you can add whatever other toppings. If you have green peppers you wanna add, you can add little pepperonis, you can add mushrooms on there. You can really play around with this and add whatever you like on your pizzas. But I just kept ours very, very basic because this is what I had on hand to use up. So I'm just gonna throw these into the oven at 375 for I would say about probably like 10 minutes or so. You just want to make sure that your meat is, warmed up and your cheese is melted. And then on top, I just did a little bit of Italian seasoning and garlic salt, and it was a quick and easy dinner. For this next dinner, I am making a sheet pan sausage and veggies, and you are about to see me doing a lot of chopping and cutting up vegetables, but I'll tell you what, that's pretty much the only prep for this recipe, so it's actually very simple. And this is a great way to use up what's left over in your fridge at the end of a week. I'm just chopping up literally everything that was left in there. I had half of an onion, so I just chopped that up. This was a pepper from our garden, chopped that up. I had some carrots left over from a soup recipe, so I just sliced those really nice and thin. I'm also going to be adding in some sweet potatoes and some russet potatoes in here. But you can really play around with this and add whatever you have on hand. I have made this with Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower. I mean, you can use whatever you have on hand, and it turns out really, really good. You just drizzle it with olive oil and seasonings, and it comes out absolutely delicious. I will say, when it comes to chopping your vegetables up, like the potatoes, you want to make sure to dice them really, really finely. You don't want huge chunks of potato, otherwise you're gonna have to cook it longer, and then your sausage tends to get on the more dried out side. So just keep that in mind when you're cutting up all of your vegetables. You do want them to be pretty small for this one. And I had a huge bowl of vegetables here, but it worked out great for leftovers throughout the rest of the week. So that is how we use this up. Obviously, we didn't eat all of this in one sitting because I ended up having such a large bowl of veggies and I threw them all into one sheet pan. I will say it took a little bit longer than half an hour. I would say it took closer to like 45 minutes to bake these in the oven. Most of these meals I try and keep under about 30 minutes, but this one was a little bit over. And then here, this is a sausage I'm using. Again, we just have a lot of venison sausage, so that's what I'm throwing in. But you can go for something cheaper at the store, whatever you have on hand to use up. And then I just drizzle this very generously with olive oil. For seasonings, I do garlic powder, I do paprika, oregano, and then salt and pepper. Lots of it. You can do a little bit more or a little bit less. It really just depends on how flavorful you want it to be, and also just make sure that it's not going to be too spicy for your kids. Oh yeah, I almost forgot I did add chili powder here too. So I will have all of these recipes written out in my description box, and you can find the directions there if you want to follow them a little bit easier. If you are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I share a ton of recipes on my channel. I'm trying to do 2 videos a week right now just to get lots of new recipes out for you. I am a busy mom of 3 kids. I have a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and then a 4-month-old. So I love quick and easy meals. As you can see, this is great. I can just throw it in the oven. I'm just gonna bake this at like 375 for probably, mine took about 40 to 45 minutes. You just wanna cook it until all of your veggies are soft, the potatoes are nice and cooked through, and then I like to add the salt on after just so I get a really nice equal distributed amount there. And then those are just gonna go in the oven. They turn out absolutely delicious. This is also a great one that you can meal prep ahead of time. So I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. Well, that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you enjoyed all of these shelf cooking recipes. If you did, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.